I think that our culture sends a message to young men that you should suppress every masculine urge. You should try to cast aside your family. You should try to suppress what makes you a young man in the first place. And I think that my message to young men is don't allow this broken culture to send you a message that you're a bad person because you're a man, because you like to tell a joke, because you like to have a beer with your friends, or because you're competitive.
Conservative commentator Brett Cooper sat down with former Navy SEAL Sean Ryan, popular YouTuber, this week to discuss that exact question.
We kind of have this new caricature of men, and obviously I think that it is a response to the softening of men in our society, obviously, and what people are experiencing, but it feels now we've been pushed in the opposite direction, where men are now these caricatures of you can't cry, you can't love a woman, you can't get married, you know, being a father's gay.
I think being a man, I mean, if you're not trying to better society, then what the are you doing? It takes being vulnerable. It takes raising kids, and it takes, you know, monogamous relationships to better society. Every man's got to get, you know, a certain amount of mischief out of their system to become like the man that they're supposed to be. But if you haven't left a mark on society, you know, whether it's your kids or your wife or whoever, your nieces and nephews, what have you done here?
The number of young male voters who voted for Donald Trump and Vance reveal that many have shifted right. This week, journalist Derek Thompson wrote about a phenomenon about what he calls Generation C. And he wrote, "These are the young people whose experiences with COVID's health, political, and economic crises caused a strong shift among young people." He continued, "The pandemic increased alone time, sending young men and women in highly gendered social media spaces, where the youngest men in particular seem to have become significantly more anti-feminist and open to right-wing influencers and parties."
What's your initial thoughts?
Well, I think let's start at the beginning. You know, one of the first things that JD Vance said was that there's sort of this encouragement in the culture for men to suppress their masculine urges. And, you know, everyone in the CPAC room kind of nods along, goes, oh, yeah, suppressing masculine urges. What does that mean? You know, what are we talking about here? And I think I could guess what sort of the scions of the Me Too movement, because of what that was all about, right? And also kind of just boilerplate feminists think male urges are. It tends to be domination, harm of others, sexual violence, or just raw sexual appetite, stuff like that. And I would say that JD Vance, his perspective is that the masculine urges are more about leading others, sort of being that large presence in a room, building things, and also destroying them. You know, the kid playing with Legos who just really wants to knock the whole city down and then put it back together again. I think there's this attitude there that boy is going to be scolded by the overprotective mom, the helicopter parent, or the female teacher in the classroom and go, why don't we not destroy things instead of building them? Well, boys are good at both, and they need to be directed in that way. So what did you take on masculine urges?
So the point that I found about masculine urges, or, well, of what JD Vance said about masculine urges, is, you know, his argument is the culture is hostile to them. And is the culture really hostile to them? The most watched TV event of every year is the Super Bowl. The most popular music genre in America is hip-hop. The most popular podcast in America, at least until last week, is Joe Rogan. Do those elements of huge touchstones in American culture suggest that people should suppress masculine urges? Quite the reverse, I would say. So I worry at some level that there's a backlash against equality, really. But let me just. I was glad actually to see.
Hold on, though.
Okay, I'll get
a cultural slogan. The future is female. All right. So this is something that kind of goes around in entertainment circles a lot. And this went viral when Kathleen Kennedy, who runs Star Wars and Lucasfilm, wore this T-shirt that says "The future is female." It spawned a bunch of articles and analysis, and people picked up this slogan in the political space too. Harvard held a symposium about the future being female, women in elected office. What does that mean? the future is female. Is that some sort of positive message? If the future is, where are the men?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about here, and I think that's what JD Vance is responding to. Why do we have these slogans that are unnecessarily divisive and is speaking almost as if we're doing replacement?
Well,